It was a crisp Monday morning when 14-year-old Kennedy Marshall walked into the prestigious Redwood Bank dressed in her school uniform, a navy blazer, pleated skirt, and black loafers. Kennedy felt both nervous and proud. Today, she was making her first solo bank deposit, handling a $5,000 scholarship check she had earned through her outstanding academic performance. The money wasn't just a reward. It was a symbol of her independence. She was determined to handle the transaction on her own, without her parents' help. Kennedy approached the counter, heart racing as she clutched her folder of documents. Behind the teller, the bank manager, Veronica Hale, a woman in her late 40s with a polished look and a chilling air of superiority, noticed Kennedy's arrival. Her eyes narrowed slightly. As Kennedy handed the check to the teller, Veronica's professional smile faltered for a moment. "A $5,000 check," Veronica said, her voice loud enough to draw attention. "For someone your age? Where did this come from?" Kennedy felt the heat rise in her cheeks but stayed composed. "It's my academic scholarship," she explained, her voice steady though her hands trembled slightly. She handed over the award letter and her school ID. "I have all the documentation here." The teller, a young man named Todd, took the check and held it up to the light, inspecting it like a detective. After several seconds, he glanced toward Veronica, who had been observing closely. Veronica walked over, not even glancing at Kennedy. "We've had a lot of fraudulent checks lately," she muttered, her tone cold. "I'll need to verify everything." Kennedy's heart pounded. She had expected a simple deposit, not an interrogation. "I need to call my mom," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "She's expecting me home soon. I don't have my phone with me." "That's not our problem," Veronica snapped, dismissing her. "You'll wait until we finish the verification." Kennedy stood frozen as Veronica walked away, arms crossed and a smug look on her face. Around her, the bank bustled with activity, yet Kennedy felt as though all eyes were on her. Whispers floated in the air, glances cast her way. She felt like she was shrinking under their gaze. Still, her mind remained sharp. Kennedy had always paid attention to the way people treated one another, the subtle signs of favoritism and bias. She had seen it before, but today she felt it firsthand. Her father had always told her to stay composed under pressure, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't about the check. From across the room, she overheard Veronica talking to Todd in a low voice. "We need to maintain our standards. We can't just let anyone walk in and expect to be treated like they belong." Kennedy's heart sank. Her fists clenched. She had worked hard for her scholarship. She deserved to be here. More time passed. The whispers continued. Kennedy stood stiffly, her gaze fixed on the clock. She had never felt so small. And yet, she reminded herself of who she was. Not just a student, but a daughter of someone who had built success through integrity and effort. Kennedy's mother, Dr. Nicole Marshall, was a respected financial consultant known for her ethical approach and impact on the community. Nicole had taught Kennedy that success wasn't about privilege, but perseverance. The Marshall family lived in a beautiful home, but never flaunted wealth. Nicole raised Kennedy with humility and a strong sense of justice. That morning, before Kennedy left for the bank, Nicole had asked, "Are you sure you don't want me to come with you?" "I got this, Mom," Kennedy said, smiling. "I'm 14 now. It's time I start handling these things myself." Nicole had smiled proudly, though worry lingered in her eyes. Kennedy had promised she would be back soon. Now, standing alone in the bank, Kennedy regretted leaving her phone in her school locker. No way to call for help. The clock ticked. People came and went. No one addressed her. No one cared. She watched as a well-dressed elderly couple walked in. Veronica beamed at them, escorting them to a VIP area. Then, a man with a thick accent approached with paperwork. Veronica waved him away. "Sorry, the system is slow today," she said dismissively. But moments later, a white couple came in with similar documents. Veronica lit up again. "Let me take care of that right away," she said, voice syrupy. Kennedy's chest tightened. This wasn't just poor service. This was discrimination, plain and simple. Then Veronica's voice cut through again. "Keep an eye on her," she told the security guard. Make sure she doesn't leave. Kennedy fought back tears. She focused on her breathing. Stay calm. Stay still. But she felt like a prisoner. Hours passed. The only sounds were shuffling papers, murmurs of conversation, and Veronica's sharp heels on the marble floor. Kennedy stood like a statue. The humiliation was suffocating. And she saw something odd. Veronica was speaking in hushed tones with a tall, stern-looking man, Harrison Boyd. Kennedy recognized the name from her mother's conversations. Harrison was CEO of Lexington Financial, a major rival of Nicole Marshall's firm. Veronica handed him a folder marked confidential. Kennedy couldn't hear the words, but she saw the tension, the urgency. Boyd nodded, smiled faintly, and walked out. Kennedy's heart raced. That folder could jeopardize her mother's business. She realized this wasn't just about mistreatment. It was about betrayal. Veronica was leaking information. Kennedy opened her leather notebook and began to write. She recorded everything: times, names, the folder, the conversations. She had always taken notes out of habit. Now, they were her lifeline. Veronica turned her gaze on Kennedy, her expression icy. Kennedy stood her ground. I'm not a problem, Kennedy said, her voice shaking but firm. I earned that scholarship. I belong here. Veronica turned to the guard. Take her to the back. Keep her there. The guard grabbed Kennedy by the arm and moved her away. Everyone watched, but no one spoke. She stood in the back corner, visible yet ignored. Then the bank doors opened. Nicole Marshall walked in, impeccably dressed, exuding calm authority. Veronica straightened. Ms. Marshall, she said, forced smile in place. What a surprise. How can I help? Nicole ignored her and went straight to Kennedy. Are you okay? Kennedy nodded. I'm fine, but there's something you need to know. She opened her notebook and began reading. She detailed the discrimination, the whispered conversations, the folder. Nicole listened silently. When Kennedy finished, Nicole turned to Veronica. Miss Hale, she said, her voice like steel. You owe my daughter an apology, and you owe me an explanation. Veronica stumbled. I don't know what you're talking about. Nicole held up a hand. Enough. You've been sharing confidential information with a competitor. This is corporate espionage. And it's over. The room went silent. Veronica's face turned pale. You're fired, Miss Hale, Nicole said. Effective immediately. Security escorted Veronica out. Nicole turned to the remaining staff and customers. This institution will undergo a complete review, she announced. We will ensure no one is ever treated like my daughter was. In the months that followed, major changes swept through Redwood Bank. An internal investigation exposed Veronica's unethical dealings and systemic discrimination. New policies were introduced. Kennedy's experience became a turning point. Kennedy was later invited to speak at Westbridge Academy. She shared her story, advocating for financial literacy and equal treatment. Standing before her peers, she smiled. Her painful moment had become a catalyst for change. Her mother's example had shown her that with courage and truth, even injustice could be overcome. And Kennedy Marshall had found her voice.